Hello, everyone. I'm Marilyn Moore of Sonic Spider and Right Start Websites. And we, along with John Moore, right here, we are sponsoring our web technology for small business seminars, along with the man behind the curtain who is invisible at the moment. I'm kind of motioning to him over here, but you can't see him. And that is Richard Pete Hanna of Creative Computers. And Rich, we're very happy for you to be doing the controls for us here for the Hangout on Air. And we do these web technology for small business seminars every month, the second Tuesday of every month. And our one today is for nurturing, using Google Plus communities to nurture relationships and build an audience for your business. And we are very pleased to have the Oceanside Chamber of Commerce be one of our sponsors. And the Oceanside Chamber, it's where we are this afternoon in beautiful downtown Oceanside, right by the beach. And they have the Oceanside Chamber sponsors many excellent events during the year. The Oceanside Harbor Days is well known in this area. They have Armed Forces Day. Oceanside Business Expo was recently held. The North County Health Fair, just some of the events. So thank you to Oceanside Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, this is Rich right here behind the scenes, sitting over there with the computer, clicking all the buttons and managing everything. Okay, today's topics are we're going to look at we're going to review real quickly what Google Plus communities are, and then we're going to be talking about relationships and audiences, and it's kind of like a chicken and egg story, you know, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and it's that kind of a thing. The interplay between relationships and audience and your audience can be very complex, and it is very unique to each business. In other words, how much you focus on individual relationships and how much you focus on a general audience depends on the type of business you have. One of the things that I really clicked on in watching and talking to other people on Google Plus was that thinking of an audience as a business asset. It's just not something out there. It's actually an asset of your business. And think of it that way makes it a much more important item for you to work on. And then we're going to talk about how to build those audience and relationships on Google Plus, a lot of the techniques, a lot of the tools that are available for you. And then also we're going to drill down just a little bit and look at the individual things you actually physically do while you're interacting on Google Plus communities. Okay, first of all, is it relationships versus audiences or relationships and audiences? It's kind of a forest versus trees kind of a thing. You can't have a forest without trees, and the trees collectively make a forest. So depending on your point of view and what's important to you, an audience could be very small. If you've got that kind of a business, let's say you're doing custom hot rods. Well, you're going to have a fairly small business because not very many people are going to spend $300,000 on a car. Whereas if you're selling some small commodity product, you want a very big audience, but you may not have a personal relationship with individual people very much. So there's a wide range of where your personal relationships are in your relationships versus your audience as a whole. So what that means is an audience is a unique thing to your business. What your business is has to do with how you define an audience and how you define a relationship within that. Fortunately, those two things kind of come together. You do one and then you do the other. It's kind of, again, forests and trees. You take care of the trees and you've got a forest. And it has that same kind of relationship. You need both. So it's not a versus kind of thing. It's more of a balance. So you're going to work on your balance. Okay, Google Plus Communities is something that was launched in 2012. And basically, it's a kind of, in the old days, we used to call it a forum, a news group, things like that. And this is basically the idea that you now see on Google Plus. It represents special interests, usually. Interests, they could be things like surfing, they could be pottery making, they could be web development, they could be Google Plus. There's groups just that specialize on how do you use Google Plus. Matter of fact, Marilyn's a commentator, as a moderator on the Google Plus for Small Business group, and there's another group that's very good called Plus Your Business that is also a very good group to go to get information about Google in general and using Google. Basically, it's a place to learn and share and connect with people. And you engage by commenting, you engage by plus oneing people, you engage by sharing tips, posting, and all those activities slowly attract the attention of other people. Imagine for a moment, it's kind of like being in a room. You walk in a room of people, and the first thing you want to do is just sort of walk around and say hi, so that people see your face, so they recognize you next month and the month after when you come to the event. You become familiar. Okay, so that's the kind of way you want to build up in Google+. The key thing is it's not for self-promotion. One of the things we see on Google+ communities that is a big mistake is people immediately land in the community and start putting links to their website and links to their blog posts, just bare links, and you're going to get ignored. And if you do it too much, you'll get banned from most communities. So you don't want to do that. Instead, it's about helping people. People then recognize you, they follow your links to your profile, and they get to know you, and before you know it, they're on your website. So it's kind of an indirect thing, but it's much more social and helpful to other people. Okay, let's get back to that business asset kind of thing. A long time ago, before Google Plus and before the internet was quite such a big thing, you built relationships by going to a meeting, going to a networking group, going to the church social, going to the town hall meeting. You actually went to places to meet people. And if you were lucky, you might have an opportunity to do a speaking engagement where you go to a conference and you speak. And those people see you as an expert. And they come up and talk to you. And then you become familiar. The problem with that is you can imagine if you stop and think of how you could do that today is you can't think of many opportunities right now where you personally could get involved without spending a lot of time driving for an hour, driving back home, and spending time there. The nice thing about Google Plus is it's changed that whole game. It's totally changed. There's no travel. You don't have to spend any money other than the computer hopefully you already have. You don't have to have all this fancy equipment that we have here. You just need your computer and an internet connection, and away you go. And yes, you still have to spend time, but it's very efficient time because you're, again, not going anywhere. You're not spending any time on traffic. You just go sit in front of your computer, do some of your business work, then do a little Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter, and then go back and do some of your business, and you can kind of work back and forth between the two. You can integrate it into your daily work tasks, basically. The nice thing in Google Plus, too, is that the communities are starting to form with special interests. So you can look at those communities and search them and find things that relate to your business. Not only your business, but your interests. Let's say you like to water ski, and you also have a company that does jewelry. Okay, that seems like incompatible, right? But if you're getting to know people in the water ski group and you're talking to them, they're eventually going to like you, and they're eventually going to look you up and discover that you do jewelry. And some of those people may go, oh, I'm interested in some jewelry. So from those casual relationships as well as business relationships, you're going to be building an audience. Now, what does that mean to build an audience in Google+? Basically, it's called circles. People circle you and you circle them. It's kind of like in Facebook following, but it's a little different because you can categorize people. You can create groups of circles, like I want one group for local audience, and then I want to create another circle for people that I've engaged with in this community. And then I want to create another circle, so you can create circles for different types of people that you engage with. Now, stop and think of what you could do with that. Think of like an alert list. Now, when you want to post something, and these people are following you, you can push out some interesting information. Again, make sure you're trying to be helpful. It's not about marketing your product, it's about being helpful. And through that, They get to know what you actually do. The other nice thing about Google Plus is that the actual posts are like little mini blogs. Not only are they little mini blogs, but Google also sees them as a web page. So that, think of you're adding web pages that people are going to come to and have a certain amount of, they show up on the SERPs, the search engine results. Matter of fact, they show up quite frequently for different things. Now, they're not long-lived, I understand. They tend to stay up for a little while, and then somebody else comes along that makes a post similar to yours, and that one shows up on top. But at least you can get attention that way. And then, of course, you've got personal search, because all the people that are circling you will start to see you up higher in the list. We talked about this earlier about there's no real page one. You become part of page one for your group. And within that, of course, you can see there's lots of opportunities for relationships. Eric Inga had mentioned, I think it was Eric Inga. No, actually it was Mark Trapagan, who had mentioned a book that he had read called The Audience. And this was a great quote that I have up here on this book. You might want to take a look at it. It was highly recommended. It's by Jeffrey K. Roars. And basically, a proprietary audience development is now a core marketing responsibility. Basically, you're looking at long-term assets for your company. And this is where this idea assets sort of came from, is from this fellow. That's when I sort of clicked into the concept of assets. And so this was a great quote. He also had another one that looked at bigger audience, more revenue. Now, isn't always true for different types of companies, because for some people, you're never going to have a huge audience, nor do you really want one, because you do a very specialized thing. But basically, you can say bigger and or better audiences mean more revenue. So I would add kind of the word better in there myself. But the point he's trying to make in here is that just because you don't think of yourself as audience-centric, like a sports team or something that, attracts huge audiences, doesn't mean performing arts or whatever, doesn't mean that an audience isn't important to you, because that audience is following you and interesting you. So just because you have a website, your audience still matters. So that was kind of an important concept that's coming along and in terms of audiences that I thought we might want to focus on. So how do you do this? That's always the big question. How do you build an audience? There's a concept that's been brought up, and there's actually a post by Eric Inga where he focuses a whole article on this. There's the link in the slides. If you get the slide share, I have the link in the slide share. It's called OPA, Other People's Audiences. Actually, we've been doing this for a long, long time. If you come to like a sundowner at a chamber, what are you doing? You're coming using the chamber's audience. The people came to the chamber for the event, and you walked in the door, and these people aren't your audience. They're the chamber's audience. They're people that came to be in part of the chamber event. So you want to start connecting with these people, and figuratively speaking, they start to become your audience. So you want to find audiences you can relate to. You want to find audiences that share your passion and interests. Those are audiences that exist already out there, and you want to start connecting with them, and they start following you and becoming your audience. So you don't really build an audience, you attract an audience by engaging in existing audiences. Where do you find them? I'm sure you can come up with a list too. Here's some quickies. On the internet, you have popular blog sites where people comment and stuff, and you watch them comment, and you can comment there too, and they start seeing you. The nice thing about a lot of these blog comments is your picture shows up, and so people actually see your face and they start recognizing your name as somebody who's also interested in that kind of information. You have special interest forums. They still exist. I realize that with all this social media, all those old-fashioned news groups and forums still exist, and sometimes for your business, that's a good place to go. Then you have literally physical conferences that you can go to and tell them that you're on Google Plus and connect with them that way. And then, of course, there's online groups, and the online group we're talking about is Google Plus Communities. And it's a really good place to start. If you can't travel to a conference or something, Google has taken the time to build a whole bunch of tools that make engagement possible to allow a thread of comments below. You can attach videos, images, you can attach all kinds of things to it. You can do private conversations, you can do events like we have here that are there and somebody can click and join your event. I mean, the tools there are incredible when you stop and think about it. And through that, hopefully, you'll start also forming closer individual relationships. Those individual relationships may open opportunities for you. Somebody may, oh, you do something I've been looking for, and they connect with you. You do a hangout together. You chat a little bit. You find out that you really have similar interests, and suddenly you're doing some business together. You know, I don't mean suddenly like the next day, suddenly like months sometimes, but eventually you can actually create a relationship and make a connection that you never would have before because you just never would have met them. So it really opens some incredible doors. Eric Enga of Stone Temple Computing, in his article,
Stone Temple
Consulting, yes, I'm sorry, did I say computing? Stone Temple Consulting had a nice list in his article that I just referenced easier that's also on the slide share. And this is his list, and I added my own little comments here. First of all, size. Focus on, for the most part, for most small businesses. If you're a Nike or something where you're selling millions and billions of shoes, you know, you might want to go for volume, but I don't think any of us here are Nike, so we'll go for quality. Relevance, and that is people need to be able to connect to you. So what you do and your interests need to be relevant to them. Ease of getting started. That's Google+. It's easy. You just sit down at your chair and get started. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to dress up. You can be in your slippers. Your hair can be, you know, whatever it is. Who cares? And away you go. So there's no prep at all. But the important point is that nothing works unless you get started. Absolutely nothing works. That's kind of a Seth Godin kind of thing. You know, start. It was his big thing. Quality of existing content. It's really, really important that as you join and look at communities, that you look at the quality of their content and look at the quality of what they're doing. Because basically, it's the old-fashioned, you are the company you keep. If there's a lot of kind of weird things going on there that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with, then go somewhere else. You need to feel comfortable. It needs to fit what you do and represent what you do.
And not only that, you don't want to have lots of spam.
Yeah, spam's another problem. If you go to a community and all you see is these bare links, everybody's posting just these links. There's no engagement, there's no discussion, just link, 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 link. That wouldn't be really a good community because you're not engaging. You're not creating relationships. You're not interacting. It's nothing. And basically, Google will start flagging those people as spam. I monitor a community called Learning WordPress. And what happens is Google starts to detect that people are just throwing bare links. They flag them as spam and put them on a separate page that only the moderators can see until we approve them. And they're pretty good at spotting spam because I usually nuke like 99% of them. And I remove them from the community and they never get seen. So you don't want to be labeled as a spammer. So, and you don't have to worry about that. You don't think, how can I avoid that? It's easy. Engagement. Think of engagement. And nobody's going to nuke you if you try to be helpful and engaging. The other thing you want to look at in the group is authority. It's really nice to have a group where some of the people in the group have written a book or are going to various conferences related to your industry because you know that they are attracting quality, serious people in your business. So look at the kind of authority. This is really easy to do on Google+. You just roll your mouse over their name, their profile hover card comes up, you can see where they work, what they're doing, you can click it, you can go to their profile, you can look them up, you can find out. I mean, imagine if you were at a networking event where you could walk up to somebody and sort of push a button on them and everything about them shows up. So you can go, do I want to talk to you? Nah, walk away. Well, that's what you can do on Google+. You can actually check out people right there without going anywhere. It's kind of cool. So you can look at the quality of the people you're engaged with very easily. The next thing from there is as you start to engage yourself, you need to ramp up your quality to match the quality of the site, of the community you're involved. And then, of course, the last thing is opportunity. Opportunity is a serendipity sort of thing, and you just have to be ready for it. It's kind of like having good luck, you know? Okay, Google Plus communities, just to go through some of a quick point list of the things that are there for you to use. You have plus ones. Plus ones is it's kind of like smiling and nodding at somebody. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like what you said. It sounds good. Plus mention is you actually are kind of agreeing with them and you want to add a comment or you want to get their attention. It's like saying, hey, Joe, that was a really good comment, and did you think of this? Blah, 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 as you go on. That's a plus mentioning where you specifically talk to somebody, and when you plus mention them, they get notified that you mentioned them. And that's really nice because it shows up on their notifications.
And if anybody's new to Google Plus mentions for you, type in the plus sign and the person's name, and it turns blue, and then they notify.
Speaker. Okay. Okay, then you want, contributing is actually sharing content, and then content in your comments. So you can actually add content in the comments as you go. You don't have to do a separate post. Those comments can be as long as you want. I've seen people do like 100, 200 word comments. I've done a few myself. So there's no limit on how big your comments can be. So you can really kind of get into it. And then a post is like a unique post on Google Plus, where again you can really get into it. Multimedia, picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 10,000 words. Keep that in mind. If you have a very visual kind of business, instead of writing this long article, post a photo, post a video. Show people what you're really interested in. The next thing you want to do in communities is you want to be watching for engagers, because those are the kind of people that you really want to connect to, because they're involved. There's a certain number of people that come through communities. They sort of come in and they come out. It's like, again, in a networking event. People walk in the door, they grab some snacks over in the corner, and they walk back out the door. You're not going to get much out of that. The people that hang around and talk, they are the kind of people you're going to attach to.
I was just going to say one more thing about comments and looking for opportunities to comment in communities, because that is really an excellent way to start building those relationships. Just a little etiquette thing. If you comment, I almost always will +1 the post, but look for other people's comments that you find insightful or interesting. +1 the comment of that person, and then direct a reply either to the person who posted or the person who made the comment, or sometimes both, because then they're notified when you mention their name. And then if you can add your own insight, or sometimes you just have a question. What you said was really interesting. I'm not sure I understood this part. Particularly when I was starting out, I had lots of questions. Not that I still don't, but I have learned enough now that I'm not quite so filled with questions, but I had a lot of really nice feedback from people with a great deal more influence than I had, who appreciated the fact that I was interested in what they had to say and wanted to find out more and wanted to know their opinion on something. And you will find that if you're not going to get circled back by someone of influence the first time you do this, but over time, then it can have really a very positive impact and a way for you to build relationships. You do have to be careful that you don't appear to be targeting someone, that you kind of move around a little bit. You don't want to be focusing just on one or two people. But on the other hand, you want to come back periodically so that they remember who you are. So looking for who is commenting and how you can respond to other commenters as well as the person posting can be very valuable in building those relationships, which can lead to the audience.
Okay, so how do you get started really? I mean, what's the physical steps? I mean, we're talking about all these things and these ideas. It's like, oh great, you're telling me make a can of soup, just throw it in the bowl, but you haven't told me how to open the can yet or anything like that. So let's talk about opening the can a little. And the first thing you do is you need to begin gently. Okay? And this is my cat, the world famous Mr. Kit, hiding under a mat. Poking his nose out. In the old days of forums, we called it lurking, but I'm told that that's kind of a negative connotation. I don't think of it that way, but that's I guess it does have these days a bad connotation. But so it's more of observing, peeking and taking a look from afar and kind of seeing how things are going. So you begin by being an observer. So that's kind of the first step, of course, is finding your communities. That's probably will take you a little while, finding the kinds of communities you're interested in. You'll join 4 or 5, you'll drop 3 or 4. It's a dynamic thing for a while until you really settle down. But the first thing you want to do while you're there is just watch. Give yourself like 15 minutes, a half hour, and just read. Read comments, read posts, read the interactions. Kind of make note of the names. Click a few people, follow to their profile. See what they're about, see what they do. Just really browse around and get to know the people in the community. Make note of the people that are posting the most and commenting the most. These are either influencers or they're really heavily involved engagers. Also get a feel, and you're gonna latch into this pretty quickly, of the etiquette of the forum. I mean, there's a certain common etiquettes in all of these communities, but you will see that it's a little different in some than others. Some communities are very strict about their guidelines. Make sure you read those guidelines, because the last thing you want to do is get a moderator on the community deleting your posts. It's a waste of your time.
I was just going to say, as a moderator in a couple of communities, often will suggest to people, make sure you read the community guidelines, and they don't realize that the community guidelines are where it says about this community. It doesn't say community guidelines, but that's what it is. So, and it's up at the upper right of every Google Plus community where it says about this community. So that's the part where it's important, because each community does have their own expectations.
Right. So yeah, keep tied into that. Take a moment to read it. The next thing you want to do once you feel comfortable in this community is to start commenting. Try to avoid, but it's not, don't totally avoid it, but try to avoid saying nice post. If you want to do nice post, just do a +1. +1, I like that. That's a good way to say that. Don't bother with typing out what nice post. Give them a +1. Do some +1. Keep in mind that when you +1 somebody and their comment, they will get a notification that you +1 them, along with your picture and your name. So you start becoming familiar to them. They'll start seeing you, and that's what you want. You want to start becoming familiar. Then, as you see people engaging, then you want to start circling people. Now, at this point, it's a good idea to pause for a minute and go over to your circles and make sure you've set yourself up so that you can put people in the right circles. Depending on your business, you might do things like general audience, good, high performance engagers, influencers. You might categorize them in the kind of people and how you might want to keep track of them later on as you go on. Yes, you can just do it in your mind, and you're probably going to do a lot of it just in your mind and remembering. But you're going to find that if you do this a lot, you're going to be dealing with hundreds of people, and you're going to stop remembering who they were and where they belonged in all this menagerie of interaction. So again, how much you do that depends on your personal needs. Anyway, circle engagers to your comments, because those are the people you want to focus on as an audience. and being familiar, but also when in doubt, keep your comments kind of on the light side at first until you really feel comfortable. Don't get too heavy into comments. I see some people will come in and just, they'll start off, first time I've seen them, and they do a 300 line post, and then I never see them again. It's like, oh, it's hard to take that seriously. Start off light, let it grow. Once you have gotten really into the community and you start really feeling like you can do some contributing, the first thing you do, though, before you do that is start sharing the content of others. People like it when you share their content. It's a way of giving them a really good vote of confidence. It's kind of like a super plus mention when you share their content. Share it to your stream first. That's a good, easy place to share it, is just out over to your own stream. And then if you're involved in maybe a couple other related, again, that's where you have to understand the community. But try to share it, and every time you do share it to this other community, or in particularly to your own profile, or if you have a business page, share it to your page if it's very business oriented. Those people are going to come back and say, thank you for sharing it. And if they don't, then, well, they're not being very good either. But they generally will. But the most important thing is they're really going to recognize you now if you keep sharing some of their content, because that helps them get their message out.
Just going to add a little bit more on the resharing. Someone once wrote a little post called me the resharing queen, so I'm going to share a couple of tips on resharing. First of all, the idea of focusing on someone else's content before your own is always really, really good. A good strategy to follow in Google+. Even after you've developed more of an audience, you still want to be doing more resharing than posting of your own content. But when you're resharing someone else's post, don't forget, this may be coming up in a future slide, but don't forget to always start with a title that you bold, use the formatting that you can. Make sure you've read the post all the way through and can give some value, add some value. If you can add your own commentary or an experience that you've had that relates to this, that is always really good, because there have been some reshares that I've seen, I'm not talking about my own here, but some of other people that are actually better than the original post, because they have summarized the key points, but they've added some additional insights that, for me anyway, I got more out of the reshare than I did, and not that the original post wasn't valuable, but it has added value to it. Using bullet points or a numbered list is always a good thing, because they're easily scannable. I try to thank the person that was posting. Always thank the person if someone reshared it before you with a plus mention, because that's great etiquette. And you'll find that you can really start developing relationships through resharing. I was telling Troy, we were talking about this a little bit before the seminar started, that when you reshare someone's post, you get two benefits from it. One, the person who wrote the post is going to, particularly make sure you plus mention them, is going to appreciate that you took the time to not only read their post, but write a nice reshare of it and added value to it. And people who see your reshare sometimes are going to remember your reshare more than the person who wrote the original post. So it does give you a lot of really excellent exposure if you do a good job with reshares.
Okay, so last point on this particular one, make sure that you don't aren't tempted to do the bare link kind of a reshare where you say, great post, link, and then you leave. Try to really avoid that, because it's not appreciated and it doesn't really get you any benefit or them. Okay, a couple more things. Hangouts on air, guess what? That's a really good place to go and be an audience. One of the things I've noticed on a lot of Hangouts on air is there's an audience of, sometimes a couple hundred people, 50 people or whatever. Those people are commenting on the event page. And as they're commenting and asking questions, you can kind of get a good feel of these people that are involved in that particular interest. And if you make a comment, you become kind of one of the gang, and you begin add to your familiarity. So you want to be familiar. And the last thing, we've kind of gone through the reshare part pretty good. The last thing is posting new content. Start out carefully. By the time you do that, you should have a really good feel for what's going to work in that community. And you may have this really great blog post you did, and you think, oh, this would be perfect to share. So you're going to think, oh, I'll just put the link here and say, oh, this is really good. It's about this topic. Link. Don't do that. Take the first section or some section of that post and actually put it in of your blog article, and actually put it in the post as a kind of a summary or as a highlight of that part of your post. Basically, you want the people who are reading the post on Google Plus to not have to click your link if they don't want to. Okay? I know that sounds weird. I want them to click my link. Yeah, we all do. Everybody knows that. But would you rather them at least read some of your material and get to know you, or have them just scan right by and say, I don't want to bother clicking that link because I don't have time? You see? You see what's happening here? People are busy, and they're not going to click the link most of the time. Even if you say, oh, this is a great article on this. Tempt them a little bit. Give them a piece of it. Give them, a piece enough that they're going to go, oh, man, I think I want to read a little more. And if they don't, they're still going to have a good impression of you because you gave them some good information. So you win both ways. So keep that in mind. Okay, next thing, be visible. Mr. Kid again, standing on a rock. You got to be out there and show yourself. Find a vantage point. Find a unique hook if you can that makes people think, oh, here's the reshare queen. Do something a little unique. That were the people that would do it's like slide decks for people and put them up. They would take HOAs and do slide decks, or do timestamp summaries. There's something you can do that makes you stand out a little bit. So be looking for that. Okay, let's look at the various parts of a reshare. This is an actual reshare. The center part there is the original post. That's the very center section there. The top is the reshare information that Marilyn did, and see where it says read more? That means there's a whole bunch more text there where she talks about the post. And down at the bottom is the comments, and if you click 6 comments, that'll expand and you'll see all the comments. So that's kind of what a reshare looks like. If you click the little hatchet up in the corner, little chevron, you'll get a drop down. The red box are the ones that will show up only if it's your post. Okay? If it's not your post, those two won't be there. So that's why I have them red box. There won't be a red box when you do this. I just put the red box to let you know that those are only going to show up on your post. But you will see post activity, link to post, and view ripples. And we're going to talk about what those are in a minute. First, post activity. Again, this is a great place to find people to circle and see who's engaging, because there you have it, a nice list of what people did. You can see who reshared. If you look, you'll see where it says reshared, commented, and +1. There's somebody who really was engaging. See, they did all 3. You really want to connect to that person possibly. So this is a good place to kind of scope out the crowd. Again, imagine walking into a network group and everybody's got little signs on that says how involved they are, It would be very helpful. Plus mentioning. Plus mentioning is like the blue, where you type a plus, and when you start typing the plus, let's go over to here, you get a drop down as you type the letters. Google goes out and finds people that are those names. Google tends to bring people up first that you have been recently plus mentioning or are part of that community. So if you don't see the person you're after right away, just keep typing, okay? And they'll come up. And the reason they don't come up right away, even if you think they should because of the alphabetizing, it's because they haven't been in the community or they haven't been connected to something you've reshared recently. But they will start to show up and you'll see them as you scroll down. So it's a good way to find people and make sure you type it correctly. Okay, effects of plus mentioning. I guess I should have had those slides in the other order. Anyway, it's used in posts and comments. So you want to use it in posts and comments, plus mentioning. It triggers notifications to those people. Those people actually get pinged, notified of what you just did. It'll say, you know, Marilyn just commented on your post and the title of the post. So that when that person looks in their notification, oh, they commented on my post, and they'll click it and the post will show up and then they can interact with you right there on the right. It also can be linked to an email address. You can actually type an email address and link people that way outside of Google+. The ties and links, it ties users to your conversation. Let's say you're having a conversation about jewelry. I'm going to pick on you with jewelry. And you know somebody who's really has some neat jewelry they did and they haven't been part of this conversation. You'll plus mention them and that will ping them into the conversation. It'll bring them and notify them that you're having this conversation and you've mentioned them. And that's a good way to pull people into a conversation as well. It's kind of like dragging somebody from out of the room in and saying, hey, this person does that, and you're doing them a favor and helping them. And but be careful. Like anything, it can be abused. If you're on Google Plus a lot and you get lots of notifications, after a while you're just not going to be able to get to them all. And some of these influencers get hundreds of notifications. So be kind of careful. Make sure you really have something meaningful for them to pay attention to. And you know, it's just a matter of respect. Okay, let's talk about that perfect post that you will never do.
Yes, you will.
Ah, yeah, you'll try, right? You'll try. Obviously, you want engaging content. That's like so obvious, but yes, if you've been on Google Plus or forums over all these years, you find that it's amazing how few people don't get that. But anyway, engaging content is important. You want to have a title. And it's easy to format the title. You just put a little asterisk in the front, type asterisk after it. Google will highlight it for you, put it on its own separate line. Then the next line, you want to be kind of the intro. Just like good writing that you learned in school. You want that first paragraph to really grab people, you know? Make sure you give credit for anything you do. Anything you heard. Hey, I heard so-and-so had a really good HOA yesterday and they talked about this topic. Give them credit.
With a plus mention.
With a plus mention, right. Carefully edited. Space is good. Don't have this massive text. Space it out. You know, just think it's easier to read if there's some space in there.
I was just going to say, John mentioned it, using good writing like you learned in school. I, as a former teacher, used to teach writing, and a lot of those great things I no longer do. As John said, white space. Think scanning. Even if you are doing a reshare, think white space, break it up. I often have paragraphs that are like 2 sentences long, sometimes even a 1 sentence just to break, and that's also a good reason to use the numbered lists and bullet points so that it can be quickly scanned down.
Yeah, you're dealing with people that are in a hurry. You're in a hurry, they're in a hurry, we're all in a hurry. So you want to help them.
Even keep your sentences shorter than you normally, I mean, we think of good writing as having all the clauses and more sophisticated sentence structure. Again, keep it simple, keep it scannable.
Mm-hmm. Citations, that's a link to a meaningful article, website, blog article that really adds to what you are doing. Make sure it really is meaningful and relevant. But help people find more information and put it out there where they can really see it. They have those tools that make short links. You can use that. Or I like to put it on its own line all by itself so people can scan right past it if they want to ignore it.
And read the community guidelines, because some communities do not allow the link shorteners.
Right.
They want just the full link.
Right. I prefer the full link because I'm a security nerd and I like to see where I'm going. The short links are kind of like jumping off the cliff from my point of view, so I tend to say, I want to see the whole thing. Tell me where I'm going. So that's my thing. Okay, so citations are important if you mention something. Photos and images, almost always a must if you possibly can. One of the things that we find ourselves doing, as a matter of fact, we were just on vacation for 4 days, and as we were walking on Cambria on the beach, we're looking, oh, that would be a good picture for a post. Oh, that would, we're doing it all the time now. So we're constantly collecting images because, yes, you can find images on the web, but then you have to give credits. You have to make sure that you can post them publicly. There's a whole bunch of rules and copyright stuff that you have to deal with. But if it's your picture, no. And you'll notice these pictures of my cat. Well, they're my pictures. The other thing you want to do is think engagement. What can I say? How can I say it so that somebody will want to reply? Somebody will want to answer it. Somebody will want to add something to it. Think, how can I trigger somebody to engage with me? Another good thing we won't get into in detail here is called hashtags. That's a kind of a search tag that allows you to group your topic with other topics. It's used on Twitter and it's used, I think, on Facebook too, but it's used here too. So if you type the hash and start the letters, you will start getting a drop-down list of common hashtags. So you can actually make use of ones that already exist. Whoops, I went backwards. Ripples, another good tool on a post. Again, you click that little chevron in the upper corner. It's the very bottom one there. It's called View Ripples. This is what it looks like. It's a big bubble graph. It's really cool. You can roll your mouse over it and see, all the people. If you look, these are all the people that connected to that original share. And each one of those little bubbles is another share. And within those bubbles, somebody shared the share. And it's really cool. You can really look at your post and see how it's been interacted with in a visual way. And you can also look at influencers' posts and see who's interacting and who's sharing somewhere else. And you literally just roll your mouse over and you can find, you could spend a good hour right there figuring out what's going on if you're feeling very adventurous. So it's a good tool. Okay, so we're going to kind of start wrapping it up here. We've been talking about relationships a bit, and we're talking about audiences, and now we're going to focus just a little bit on just relationships. Okay, these are Mr. Kit and the sister Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell's no longer with us, unfortunately. We live out in the country, and you know what happens to country cats sometimes. But anyway, this is Kit and Sister Tinkerbell, relaxing, having a good relationship, and you want to nurture these relationships. Wade Harmon's very popular content provider on Google Plus, and he does relationship marketing. I would, write that name down. Check him out. He has some really good HOAs that really focus on detail on relationship marketing. I'd really, really recommend you follow him. He had a nice little list called New Tools, Old Rules. And these are his kind of key bullet points. Find a circle that interests you, become visible and familiar. I mean, does this sound familiar? I think I talked about it already. But notice that it also applies to relationships. Approach and be approachable. Be friendly. Somebody says hi, say hi back, so to speak. Somebody plus ones you, make a point of plus oneing them back when they comment. So, reciprocate. Make sure you respond. If you see the people showing up on your notification that they plus one you, make note of that so that when you're out there browsing around, you plus one them and give them, share the love, so to speak. And also be consistent. Always be consistent in how you engage with people. That's going to help an awful lot.
On the reciprocity, it's really, people take note of that. If you've reshared something of someone else's, often I have had them then look through my page and find something that they find of value and reshare it. And vice versa, if someone reshares something to mine, I'll often go to their page and see what I can share. What you don't want to do, though, is just you may have already experienced this where you find that somebody has just plus one like 8 of your posts just down the line. That really doesn't get you anywhere. So be selective. Pick things that you really do find value in. But the being reciprocal is really, really important, and it's really important too to find someone kind of where you are that maybe has a few more or a few less followers, and you can really build some nice relationships there and support each other if you have similar interests and kind of at the same point. And I found that to be very helpful also.
We have somebody made a comment on the comment tracker, and Rich has got it commented here. It's a good comment. Luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. I think we've heard that kind of a sentiment before, and it's really good. Being prepared and getting yourself ready so that you can take advantage of opportunities is really important.
Great one there, Tony.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's another good quote from Wade Harmon. Basically, don't force it. I mean, relationships you want them to come naturally. Be yourself. Be the people you want to surround you that will come with time. Don't rush anything that is worth doing right. A relationship foundation in which you can build online businesses. Because you're going to meet people that can help your business, people that can relate to your business, also people that you might eventually do business with. And you want to take the time and build those relationships. Again, a very good quote from Wade Harmon. Okay, this is what we kind of covered today. We talked about the Google Plus communities in detail. We talked about relationships and audiences and how they interact, the chicken and egg kind of thing. Relationships help build communities. Communities give you opportunities for relationships and audiences. We talked about an audience being a business asset, and think of it as something of value that you're actually gathering for your business, just like the other assets in your business. Your audience is something that you literally, if you were to sell your business, would be an important part of what makes your business valuable. Building an audience in communities is a good place to start. There's a lot of places. I mean, Facebook and Twitter are also areas. Twitter not so much because it's more of a broadcast media, but it still is places where you can build audiences. Don't get stuck in one place. Find your audience where your audience is at.
And a shout out to Wayne Brett, who's someone we actually have met in real life. Wayne says, Google Plus gives you the opportunity to tune into the exact audience that loves to see your product or services. So you're not just broadcasting. You can find the audience that fits your business, your services, and it makes it a much more targeted, much more valuable resource. So thanks, Wayne.
All right. And the last thing is we went through the process. We went through the process that you should go through to get started and some of the details of that. Does anybody have any kind of thoughts or questions they want to add to this? Yes?
How does a community get started?
Okay, the question was, how does the community get started? Okay, well that's an interesting question, is that I've started my own community and other people have started communities that I've talked to, and basically you see a need. You see a need to create a place where people can get together, and you think you can do it better than somebody else in terms of maintaining the quality and stuff. When Google Plus first started, there was, communities were showing up like weeds. And now you're starting to see the better communities are growing and the other communities aren't. And just because a community exists already doesn't mean you shouldn't start one, but obviously you want to make sure that you can actually try to do it better, that you can see something that you can do better than what it's done. Sometimes you'll see a community in which there's a lot of spam. And you'll say, well, I want to do a community like that, but I really want to limit spam. For example, I didn't start the Learning WordPress community. It was started by somebody else. But when I found it, it was a fairly small community. And what I liked about it is there was almost no spam. And so I got engaged in that community, eventually became a moderator. He invited me to be a moderator. And yeah, I nuke people rather quickly, but I've kept it a very high quality community. If you really want help, that's a community to go to. And so that's the kind of thing. Same thing with Google Plus for small business. Very high quality, really, I mean, you go there and you're just not going to find anything that isn't really valuable for your business. You're not going to find a lot of just fluff. And that's the kind of communities that you can really get started. And you may see a community in your interest area that just got a lot of chit-chat going on, and maybe you want to decide to start one that really focuses on and is a little more serious in terms of really providing quality.
But do you just want to go through the nuts and bolts for a second?
Oh yeah, basically, you know, you go to communities on the drop down, and you see your list of communities that you can search, and there's a button there that says start your own community. Click that, and it's a wizard, it'll walk you right on through. And you want to think about your guidelines and create your guidelines. Have a nice little graphic that kind of symbolizes what you want to do, and you're basically done, other than the work of moderating it. If you start a community, it is a commitment to check it out several times a day, because it'll get cluttered very quickly. The neglect will show quickly. Just overnight, there'll be 10, 15 posts of people just doing what we call link dumping. So you got to keep them cleaned out. So yes, you got to be interested in making a little more long-term commitment. Okay?
In other words, the question might come up, what about just joining a good community that already works, as you did?
Right. In my case, I was interested in a WordPress community, and I found a smallish one that had good quality content, and I just sort of got involved. And I got involved enough that they decided I would be a good moderator, and I appreciated that. So, okay? All right. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, are there particular times of day you find to be more interesting to go into it? You know, morning, evening, later at night?
Yeah, there's questions about the time of day that might be most interesting. Part of that is the where you are in the world. You got to realize that if the people you are engaging with are largely on the East Coast, then you're going to find first thing in the morning you're going to want to be up and hitting the button. Same thing if your audience is in Europe, you're going to want to, So you got to realize that it's an international kind of thing sometimes, and so you got to think of when your audience may be up and on their computer, and when's the best time to put content. So actually, it has more to do with understanding your audience. And that's where, I remember you said, be an observer. You want to go in and you want to kind of make note. Okay, there's heavy posting from 9 to whatever in this part of the forum. So that's when I want to be active. You see? So yeah, part of that's observing when the people involved in that community are really active and being there, being in the middle of it.
And the same thing when you're posting your own content, you just kind of have to test and see. I've found that in this time zone, I don't think my audience is in any particular time zone, but I seem to do best when I post in the morning. But I was talking to someone else, and they said, I've had really good luck posting. This was the middle of the country, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you kind of have to, as John said, observe, and for your own posting, just kind of test it and see.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up today. Unless there's any more questions. There's more questions. We'll cover them. Anybody have anything else they want to jump in on?
I have a question.
Yes.
And related to what the comment that Mike put up there was, how it offers a perfect venue for your business to connect with other people that are related to you.
Mm-hmm.
But then part of the theme today was to be careful not to self-promote.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, how do you juggle that part? You can connect with all these related people, but you want to not self-promote. So is the secret to promote other people that are related to you and hope for reciprocation? Or?
Yeah, you hit.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question has to do with the conflict between yes, you're a business and you want to promote your business, and that's kind of why you're there, but at the same time, I'm telling you, don't self-promote. So it's like, you're okay, what do I do? Actually, it's not as complicated as you might think, because when you become familiar and connect to people, you have a profile back there. And guess what's on that profile if you've done your profile right? All your self-promotion, all the links to your business. You talk about your business. You talk about what you do. All they have to do is go to your profile, and they've got you. They've got your website. They've got your blog. They've got everything. So it's not, you're just one click away from self-promotion if they're interested. And guess what? If they're interested, they will follow those links. Yeah, and the other thing is that when you're building authority and you're building your familiarity and you're building your added value, then you've already kind of sold them. It's like a great recommendation. If you walk into a shop that a friend recommended, you're going to be more likely to buy. If you walk into a shop just out of nowhere and you've never seen the place, you're going to be a little more cautious, right? So by being engaged in the community, you're actually creating that feeling of trust, that feeling of, hey, I think I might want to do business with this person because I know them. Relationships. They land on your profile, they see what you do. You know, you're kind of home free at that point.
And don't forget being helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
So that you show.
Okay.
As you would in your business if you're talking to people.
Right.
If they come into your shop or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a great answer.
So it's kind of the soft sell, and that's really good. People like that. I like that. Most people really like that, and it's the best way to build those business relationships. Okay, we're going to wrap it up for today. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, so to speak, and we'll be here again next month. We're actually got some guests coming up soon. We've got 2 guests. We haven't quite decided how they're scheduling. We have Brian Jensen on Google Plus content. Is he going to do content?
It'll be more on Google Plus.
Yeah, just Google Plus in general. We also have a kind of a big person in the SEO world going to be coming in who's going to talk about the kind of things you should know as a small business for SEO. So we're going to have a couple of great guests coming up. So we'll have that announced exactly who's coming first and whatnot. And
So we'll see you next second Tuesday of July.
okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.